Welcome to Round Glass. I'm Vishvapani Blomfield and thank you so much for joining me. This is the 11th session on my series Engaging Imagination. In today's practice, we'll be connecting with the image of a jewel in the heart, and that'll be a way of getting a sense of our precious inner potential. So just reflecting about preciousness. What is the most precious thing you have? And what makes it important? So I want to thank everyone for sharing in the chat. I see someone has said the most precious thing he has is a vintage silver watch given to him by his grandfather. And someone else says my great-grandmother's diamond ring. So that's lovely. It shows that often the most precious things for us aren't the most expensive ones. And they're precious because of what they mean to us, often for family reasons. So, like every family, there was a space in the house where I grew up where we kept our suitcases. And along with the suitcases that we took on holiday and so on, there was one battered brown leather case that looked like it should have been thrown out decades before. Now this was the case that my father brought with him aged 9 when he travelled from Germany to England. But that wasn't just any journey. He was a Jewish child in Berlin in the Nazi period, persecuted for his race. His family wanted to leave, but nowhere accepted refugees. So then what happened was in 1938, the British government permitted children to come to the UK if they were sponsored. But it was just the children. So my father was put on a train and waved goodbye to his father, who he would never see again. And all he had with him as he arrived in Britain was a brown leather suitcase. And the suitcase became battered as he travelled from home to home. And then eventually it came to rest in our house on top of the wardrobe. And it was precious because of what it meant to my father. It was a link between his old life and his new one, between everything he'd lost and then everything he gained. He'd escaped persecution. He'd survived the war, but all he had to help him do so was in that little case. So, in the previous practice in this series, we imagined a flower in our hearts, and we'll be doing that again today, but imagining a particular flower. So I have a flower here, it's a lily. We were imagining the lotus, which represents enlightenment or complete wisdom. And the lily is a kind of a Western equivalent. It's not a water lily, but it's a rather beautiful peace lily. And it's there to symbolize the things that we value most deeply. So there's the flower. And we'll also be imagining that a jewel is resting in the middle of the flower. And you can see that jewel as the compassionate impulse to share that precious experience with others. Now you probably heard of mantras or chants, and the most famous Buddhist mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum, which means homage to the jewel in the lotus. And it's said to be the sound of compassion. So we'll be using that mantra today in the practice, just letting it resonate in our hearts. So do feel free to ask questions or share your experience in the chat. And I'll do my best to respond when we've finished. So let's just, to start with, set up for the sit, deciding how we want to sit. Finding a posture that feels comfortable, alert, just letting the weight rest down, to be settled, letting the body rise up, to be alert. Take a breath. Just settling. You may be deciding whether eyes are open or closed, how we relate to the screen. So checking what's right for you today. And as we arrive, just feeling the body, sensing, feeling the body. And feeling that the body is resting on the earth. Resting, settling. And sensing. So not thinking about the body, sensing it. And just feeling the body rising up from the earth. The legs, the torso, the spine rising up, chest opening. Full height of the body, soft shoulders, soft face, soft eyes. Settling. Connecting with the breath. Connecting with the belly. And with the heart. So I invite you, if it helps, just place your hand on your heart. This can be a way to just get a sense of this part of the body and everything that's associated with it, with the heart center. So we can just feel the sensations, feel the contact, and feel the breath moving in the body, the chest, rising as we breathe in, settling as we breathe out. Moving with the breath. And connecting with the emotional center. Letting the breath be warm. Letting the breath be kind. Kindness flowing in. So as we stay with the heart center, imagining a lotus, a flower, beautifully formed flower that's there in the heart, a lily maybe. And letting the flower fill the heart. So seeing the flower, sensing the flower, and we can keep our hand here, which I quite like doing actually, or place it down, it's up to you, whichever feels more comfortable. So staying with this image of the flower. What color is the flower? Just seeing the colour, white or red or pink, whatever it might be. The petals and curls of the flower. And then in the middle of the flower is a jewel. So the jewel resting on the flower, on the petals, on the open bed of the flower. A jewel rests, glinting, sparkling. Catching the light. And the jewel represents what we love, what we find most precious. So seeing the jewel and just feeling its meaning, just sort of connecting with it. A sense that this is something very precious at the core of you. Jewel resting on the lotus, on the flower. Breathing. And the jewel glows, shines, shines through the world. Glowing, glowing with love. From our hearts. Kindness glowing in our hearts. Radiating kindness. Radiating love. The jewel in the lotus. Compassion in the heart. And then listening. hearing the sound of compassion. Hail the jewel in the lotus. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 And you may like to repeat the mantra to yourself. Just letting it resonate in your heart. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om, jewel in the lotus, Hum. So staying with the breath, staying with the body, staying with the lotus, staying with the jewel, and the mantra. Repeating the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 So letting the mantra fade and staying with the image. the jewel in the lotus, resting in our hearts. Seeing the jewel, seeing the lotus. And letting the image fade. And sensing the body. Just feeling the breath. Resting, settling, absorbing. Breathing. And then starting to make a gradual transition. Just encourage a little movement back into the body. So maybe rolling your shoulders. And this is if you want to stop meditating now, of course. You might want to keep going. You might want to stay with the image or the mantra, just the breath and the body. But if you're bringing the practice to a close, then making it a gradual, gentle transition, just by gently introducing a little bit of movement, and so then when we're ready, bringing the practice to a close, maybe opening our eyes, if that feels right. So you still need to take some time to absorb the practice. There's a lot in today's practice. Quite a few different images. There was the heart and the sense of the flower in the heart. And that is a whole image in itself, beautiful image. And then there was the jewel resting on the flower. And the mantra, but also the sense of compassion and the compassion radiating from us. So maybe just noticing if any of those elements struck you in particular. Did you feel a particular resonance? We came to the flower or the jewel or the mantra. So whatever happened, just notice. I think mantras are particularly interesting. You know, you may or may not have used them before, but there's a sense of something resonating within us. So thank you for your comments. Anita asks if I have any advice to quiet her busy mind when she practices. So this is something that thank you, Anita, and this is something for every practice that we do. Of course, our minds are busy. And the main advice is just to be patient and persistent. You know, of course, the mind will want to be thinking busy, busy, busy. You know, take time to settle and bring the mind back, bring your attention back, keep on bringing your attention back. And there's something else which I think we're really working with these practices based on images, which is interest. You know, get your mind interested in something that is going to help it settle. So the Om Mani Padme Hung mantra is associated with a figure called Avalokiteshvara, who's known as the Bodhisattva, which is like an enlightened being, a Bodhisattva of compassion. And he's depicted with many arms, each of them holding an implement, and the implement are there to help people. And so it's quite a rich image, and it may or may not speak to you, but what it's evoking, and what the jewel and the lotus and all of those things are evoking, is kindness. And that's just such an important quality for all of us. We need to feel that we are the recipients of kindness. Almost the way a plant needs water. You know, we need kindness. Maybe from other people, but maybe, you know, there's no one else around to be kind. So then we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to feed ourselves with kindness. Because without kindness, life dries up. And kindness is that sense that we are valuable, we're precious. But there's something else about kindness, which is that it needs to be shared. And it wants to be shared. And unless we want to share kindness, is it really kindness? So the mantra expresses all that. It expresses a sense that we're willing to look at suffering. So our own suffering and other people's suffering, and that we will respond to it. And that willingness really comes from a source of strength that's deep within us. So the jewel in the lotus. And the great thing about a mantra is you can repeat it at any time, not just when you're doing your meditation. So try that today. You know, try just turning the mantra over in your mind. So a little nugget or jewel or wisdom from Rumi, who says that there is a life in you. Search that life. Search the secret jewel in the mountain of your body. So search the secret jewel in the mountain of your body. And when you search, and that's what we're doing with these practices, we're searching, and that's your life. That's the life force. So there's a lot in that practice we did today, and do come back to it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Follow me on my profile to practice this session again and see when I'm going live next. Have a good day and treasure the jewel in your heart.